Western comic book characters be like,
Mr. Fireman, the Golden Age hero from Winter Comics, is introduced as a man, Steve Stevens, able to control fire because the god of fire Hephaestus granted him this power to defeat the enemies of America because he was pure of earth. He only stays in America and fights Dr. Criminal, who has the power to pay criminals to work for him. Winter Comics gets bankrupted and bought by Good Comics.
in the Silver Age, there is a revamp of Mr. Fireman, who is now a man named George that for a freak lab accident at a factory of lighters caused by the explosion of radioactive wastes has the power to become made of fire. He calls himself Mr. Fireman because he loved the Mr. Fireman comic he read as a kid. Later in time, he meets the actual Mr. Fireman from the Golden Age. He actually exists despite being considered a comic character because he licensed comics about him. They team up to fight the fire trolls of the subterranean kingdom on Mars. At the start of the Bronze Age, Mr. Fireman number 2 has all his family murdered by the original Dr. Criminal and becomes edgier and calls himself Mr. Firework. After the Trouble on Many Universes, the stories of the two firemen get rebooted. Mr. Fireman number 1 was always a robot that believed to be human, and Hephaestus that gave him powers was actually his creator trying to give him a reason to act like a hero. George was always a mutant, and the freak lab accident activated his powers from the fire dimension to control fire and fly. For a mandate by GC, Good Comics, the original Fireman can't be called like that again, so he calls himself Cyberfire and now kills his criminals. Retcon. George was actually an alien from the planet Firefire. Retcon. He was a mutant alien on Earth, and his parents lied that he was an alien because mutant aliens get killed on sight. Cyberfire adopts 2 sons. They become evil. Cyberfire gets killed by Dr. Criminal, and his sons, for avenging him, kill Dr. Criminal. It was actually a Dr. Crimebot. His sons never appear again. Mr. Fireman meets Fire Lad, a black man that hates him for being white, and so becomes a superhero to show him how it's done. He did a shit job at it, but then Mr. Fireman of Universe 1111 dies, and Fire Lad becomes the new Mr. Fireman. In the main universe, Mr. Fireman asks for help paying bills.